I have a question for you, Socrates. Can goodness be taught, or do we acquire it through practice? Or if humans become good neither by teaching nor by practice, then perhaps it comes to us by nature, or in some other way.
Meno, there was a time when people from Thessaly were famous among the Greeks only for riches and horse riding. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you are equally famous for wisdom, especially at Larissa, the native city of your friend Aristippus. Gorgias is responsible for this. When Gorgias went there, the best young minds fell in love with his wisdom, including your lover Aristippus and the other leaders of Thessaly. He taught you the habit of answering questions in the grand and bold style of those who know. This is the style in which Gorgias answers all questions. Any Greek may ask him anything. My dear Meno, things are quite different here in Athens. Wisdom is a scarce commodity. It seems to have relocated from us to you. I'm sure that if you were to ask the Athenians whether goodness is natural or acquired, they would laugh in your face. They would probably say, "Stranger, you have far too good an opinion of me. If I were inspired, I might answer your question. But I don't even know the meaning of goodness, much less whether or not it is acquired by teaching." Meno, I live in this impoverished land, and I am as poor as the rest of its citizens. I confess with shame that I know nothing about goodness. So if I don't know what it is, how can I know its qualities? If I knew nothing at all about Meno, how could I tell whether he was handsome, rich, and noble, or the opposite of these qualities? Do you think I could?
Of course not. But Socrates, are you serious when you say you don't know the meaning of goodness? Do you want me to report that news when I go back home?
My dear Meno, you can tell them that, and you can also say that, in my opinion, I've never known of anyone else who did.
Didn't you meet Gorgias when he was here in Athens?
Yes, I did.
And don't you think that he knew?
I don't have a good memory, Meno, so I can't tell what I thought of him at the time. I suppose he did know, and that you know what he said. Remind me of how he put it. Or maybe you would rather tell me your own view. I suspect that you and he agree.
We do.
Well, he isn't here, so let's forget about him. Meno, please be so kind as to tell me what you think goodness is. I would be delighted to find that I am mistaken and that you and Gorgias really know the meaning of goodness.
Socrates, it's not difficult to answer that question. First, consider what's good in a man. A man is good when he knows how to manage the republic and do it in a way that would benefit his friends and harm his enemies, being careful not to suffer harm himself. It is also easy to describe a woman's goodness. A good woman brings order to her house, cares for its contents, and obeys her husband. What's good differs with age and every stage of life, depending on whether a person is young or old, male or female, enslaved or free. There are many kinds of goodness. It has many definitions, because it is relative to the actions and ages of each of us in all that we do. And the same may be said of what's bad, Socrates.
This is my lucky day, Meno. I ask you for one form of goodness, and you present me with a whole swarm of them. So, let's follow the metaphor of the swarm. If I ask you to tell me what is the nature of a bee, and you answer that there are many kinds of bees, then I would ask you whether bees differ as bees because there are many different kinds of them, or because they are distinguished by some other quality, such as their size, shape, or beauty. How would you answer that?
I would say that bees do not differ from each other as bees.
Suppose that I went on to say, that's what I want to know, Meno. Identify the quality that makes them all alike, not the ones that make them different. Would you be able to answer that?
I would.
Similarly, if the forms of goodness, however many there are, all have a common nature that makes them good, then the person who wishes to answer the question, what is goodness, would do well to have that common nature in sight. Are you with me?
I'm beginning to get it. But I don't yet fully grasp the question.
Meno, when you say that there is one form of goodness for a man, another for a woman, another for a child, and so on, does that apply only to goodness, or would you say the same of health, size, and strength? Isn't the nature of health always the same, whether in a man or a woman?
Yes, health is the same, whether in a man or a woman.
And isn't this also true of size and strength? If a woman is strong, she is strong because of the same form and the same strength in her that is in the man. I mean, strength, considered as strength, whether of a man or a woman, is the same. Do you see any difference?
No, I don't see any difference.
And won't goodness, as goodness, be the same in a child or an adult, in a woman or a man?
Socrates, I can't help thinking that this case is unlike the others.
Why? Didn't you say that what's good in a man is to manage a republic, and what's good in a woman is to manage a house?
Yes, I did say that.
Can either a house or a republic or anything else be properly managed without self-control and justice?
Of course not.
Then both men and women, if they are to be good men and women, must have the same qualities of self-control and justice.
True.
Can either a young man or an old one be good if they are out of control and unjust?
They cannot.
They must be self-controlled and just.
Yes.
Then should we say that all people are good in the same way, by participation in the same qualities?
That seems to follow.
So, they would not have been good in the same way if the qualities were not the same.
They would not.
Since we have established that the quality is the same, please try to remember what you and Gorgias say that goodness is.
Do you want a single definition for all of them?
That's what I want.
Then what else could it be other than the power of ruling over people?
Does your definition include all goodness? Is goodness the same in a child and in a slave, Meno? Should a child govern its father? Should the slave rule the master? And if the slave did rule the master, would the slave continue to be a slave?
I don't think so, Socrates.
No, that wouldn't make much sense. So let's consider the question again. According to you, goodness is the power of ruling. But shouldn't we add ruling justly rather than unjustly?
Yes, Socrates, I agree to that change, because justice is good.
Meno, would you say that justice is good or a good?
What do you mean?
I'm asking what I would ask about anything. For example, consider roundness. I would say that it is a shape, not simply shape, because there are other shapes.
That's right, and that's what I'm saying about goodness. There are other kinds of good besides justice.
What are they, Meno? Tell me their names, just as I could name the other shapes if you asked me.
Courage, self-control, wisdom, excellent character, and many others.
Meno, this brings us right back to where we started. We went looking for one form of goodness, and we have found many, though not in the same way as before. We are still unable to find the common good that runs through all of them.
Socrates, that's because I still can't conceive of what's common to goodness, as in the other cases.
That doesn't surprise me, but I'll do my best to help us move ahead. You know, of course, that this same question applies to all things. Let's suppose someone asks you the question I asked before. Meno, what is shape? And if you said roundness, that person would reply, as I did, by asking whether you would say that roundness is shape or a shape. You would say a shape.
That's right.
The reason is that there are other shapes.
Yes.
And if you were asked, you would name the other shapes.
I would.
And if that person asked what color is, and you said white, the questioner would ask whether white is color or a color, and you would reply, a color, because there are other colors.
Correct.
And if the questioner asked you to name the other colors that are just as much colors as white, you could do so.
Yes.
Let's suppose the questioner were to pursue the matter as I do and say, Once again, we have landed in particulars, but that's not what I'm seeking. Tell me, since you call them by a common name and say that they are all shapes, even when they differ from each other, what is the common nature you call shape? The one that includes straight as well as round and is no more one than the other? You do say that, don't you?
Yes.
Well, when you say that, you don't mean that the round is less round than straight, or that straight is less straight than round.
Certainly not.
You're only saying that the round shape is not more of a shape than the straight shape, or that the straight shape is not more of a shape than the round shape.
That's right.
Then what is this thing we call shape? See if you can answer. Suppose someone asked you that question either about shape or color, and you replied as follows: I don't understand what you want or know what you are asking. That person would probably look amazed and say, don't you understand that I'm looking for what is common to all of them? The question could be put in another form. Meno, the person might say, what is the common element you call shape, which includes not only round and straight shapes, but all of them? Couldn't you answer me now? I wish you would try. It would give you good practice and prepare you to answer the same question about goodness.
Socrates, I'd rather have you answer that question.
You want me to cuddle you?
I do.
If I agree, then will you tell me about goodness?
I will.
Then I'll do my best, because the prize will be worth it.
I agree.
I'll try to explain to you what shape is. Try this answer. Shape is the only thing that always coexists with color. I hope that satisfies you. I would be happy if you give me a similar definition of goodness.
But Socrates, that's a foolish answer.
Why is it foolish?
Because you say that shape is that which always accompanies color. But if a person does not know what color is, any more than what shape is, what kind of answer would you have given?
I would have given a true answer. If the person were inclined to be clever and contentious, I would say, you have my answer, and if I'm wrong, it's your job to refute me. But if I were talking, as you and I are now, in a friendly way, I would reply more mildly, in a way suited to dialectic. I would not only tell the truth, but I would make use of premises that the person with whom I'm discussing would be willing to accept. This is how I will approach you. You will agree, won't you, that there is such a thing as an end or termination or boundary? I'm using all these words in the same sense, even though I know that Prodigus might disagree with us on this point. But I assume that you would speak of a thing as having ended. That's all I'm saying. Nothing complicated.
Yes, I would say that a thing is ended or terminated, and I think I understand what you mean.
Would you also speak of a surface and of a solid, as in geometry?
Yes.
Then you are in a position to understand my definition of shape. I define shape as that in which the solid ends. It is the limit of a solid.
Then what is color?
You have a lot of nerve, Meno, pushing an old man to give you answers where you won't even take the trouble to remember Gorgias' definition of goodness.
When you have answered my question, Socrates, I'll answer yours.
If a person wearing a blindfold could hear you talking, it would be obvious that you are still handsome and have many lovers.
Why do you say that?
Because you always speak in imperatives. Like all spoiled beauties in their prime, you are tyrannical. I suspect you have discovered my weakness for handsome people, so I must please you and answer.
Yes, do.
Would you like me to answer you in the style of Gorgias? You are at home with that way of speaking.
I would like that a lot.
Didn't Gorgias agree with Empedocles' theory of effluences, which are given off by all existing things?
That's right.
They said that there are passages through which these effluences pass.
Exactly.
And some of these effluences fit into the passages, but some are too small or too large.
True.
You also agree that there is such a thing as sight.
Of course.
Now, as Pindar says, read my meaning. Color is an effluence from shapes, commensurate with sight and able to be sensed by it.
Socrates, that's an excellent answer.
Of course it is, because it is just the sort of answer you are used to hearing. You probably think that you can use the same theory to explain the nature of sound, smell, and similar phenomena.
Yes, I do think so.
That answer, Meno, was in the majestic style of the theater, and therefore it was more appealing to you than the other one about shape.
Yes.
Son of Alexidemus, I'm sorry to say that the other one was better, and I'm sure you would agree if you would stay and be initiated, and not required, as you said yesterday, to leave before the mysteries.
I will be happy to stay, Socrates, if you give me more answers of that sort.
Then for my sake as well as yours, I'll do my best. But I'm afraid I won't be able to give you many more. Now, it's your turn to do what you promised. Tell me the universal nature of goodness, and don't make a singular into a plural, as comics say about people who break something. Please deliver goodness to me whole and sound, not broken into several pieces. I have given you a model to follow.
All right, Socrates. In my opinion, goodness is the love and attainment of the beautiful and noble. I agree with what the poet says. Goodness is the desire and power of attaining the honorable.
Does the person who desires the honorable also desire the good?
Certainly.
Then do you think that there are some people who desire the bad and others who desire the good? Don't all people desire the good?
No, I don't think so.
Some people desire the bad?
Yes.
Do you mean that they believe the bad they desire is good, or do they know it to be bad and desire it anyway?
I think both are true.
Meno, do you really believe that a person knows the bad to be bad and desires it anyway?
I certainly do.
In what way do they desire the bad? Do they want to possess it?
That's right. They want to possess it.
Do they believe that the bad will be good for the person who possesses it, or do they know that it will be harmful?
Some people believe that the bad will do them good, but others know it will be harmful.
In your opinion, Meno, do those who believe that the bad will do them good know that it is bad?
No, I certainly don't think that.
Those who are ignorant of the bad do not desire it. They desire what they believe to be good, whereas it is really bad. In other words, they do not know what is bad and yet desire it, believing the bad to be good, so they really desire the good. Could anything be clearer than that?
I think you've stated the matter correctly, Socrates.
Then, do the people who, as you say, desire what is bad and believe that what is bad will harm those who possess it, know that it will hurt them?
They must know that.
Don't they think they will be miserable to the extent that they are harmed?
Yes, they must believe that as well.
Aren't miserable people unhappy?
I would say that they are unhappy.
Does anyone desire to be miserable and unhappy?
Of course not.
Therefore, if nobody desires to be miserable, nobody desires what is bad. What is misery but the desire for and possession of what is bad?
That seems to be true, Socrates, and I admit that nobody desires what is bad.
But didn't you say earlier that goodness is the desire for and power of obtaining what is beautiful and noble?
Yes, I did say that.
If that is true, then the desire for goodness is common to all people, and in that respect, one person is no better than another.
True.
So, if a person is not better than another in desiring goodness, superiority could only lie in the power of obtaining goodness.
Exactly.
Then, according to your definition, goodness lies in the power of obtaining good things.
Socrates, I agree fully with your way of explaining this matter.
Then let's look at it from another point of view, because you are probably right. You do say that goodness is the power of obtaining good things.
Yes.
And by good things you mean health, wealth, having gold and silver, and holding office and honor in the state. Are these what you would call good things?
Yes, I mean all these things.
Then, according to Meno, who is the hereditary friend of the great king, goodness is the power of obtaining silver and gold. Would you add, in a just and holy way, or is that not important because any kind of acquisition is to be regarded as good, even if it is unjust and dishonest?
No, Socrates, that would not be good, but bad.
then it seems that justice, holiness, self-control, or some other part of goodness must accompany the acquisition. Without them, simply obtaining good things will not be good.
How could there be goodness without them?
Would you say that it would be good to avoid the acquisition of gold and silver in a dishonest way?
I would.
Then acquiring such goods no more constitutes goodness than not acquiring them. But whatever is accompanied by justice and honesty is good, and whatever lacks justice is bad. Is that right?
In my opinion, there's no doubt about it.
And didn't we say that justice, self-control, and the like are each parts of goodness?
Yes.
Meno, are you making fun of me?
Why do you say that, Socrates?
Why? Because I asked you to put goodness into my hands, whole and unbroken, and I gave you a model to use in framing your answer. You have ignored all that, and are now agreeing that goodness is the power of attaining what is good justly, or with justice, clearly indicating that justice is a part of goodness.
Yes.
Then it follows from what you say that goodness is doing what you do with a part of goodness, because justice and the like are parts of goodness.
What's your problem?
What's my problem? Didn't I ask you to tell me the nature of goodness as a whole? You're a long way from telling me that. You claim every action to be good that is done with a part of goodness, as if you had already told me the whole of goodness, and as if I should be able to recognize the whole when it is chopped up into little pieces. Therefore, my dear Meno, I'm afraid I must begin again and repeat the same question. What is goodness? Otherwise, I can only say that every act done with a part of goodness is goodness. What else could it mean to say that every act done with justice is good? Don't you think I need to repeat the question? Can anyone who does not know goodness know a part of goodness?
No, I don't think that is possible.
Do you remember how, in the example of shape, we rejected any answer framed in terms that were as yet unexplained or on which we had not yet agreed?
Yes, Socrates, and we were right to reject them.
Well, my friend, let's do the same thing now. We should not pretend to explain to anyone the nature of goodness or anything else as a whole through some unexplained portion of it. To do that simply leads us to repeat the same old question, what is goodness? Am I right or not?
I'm afraid you're right.
Then let's begin again. According to you and your friend Gorgias, what is the definition of goodness?
Before I met you, Socrates, I had heard that you were always puzzling yourself and other people. Now you're casting your spells over me. You have bewitched and enchanted me so that I am at a complete loss and don't know what to say. Now I will make fun of you. Both in your appearance and in your power over others, you resemble the torpedo fish that paralyzes those it touches as you have paralyzed me. My mind and my tongue are numb, and I can't speak. I have delivered countless speeches about goodness to different kinds of audiences, and I thought they were good ones. Now I can't even say what goodness is. Socrates, I think you're smart to avoid travel abroad, because if you did in other places what you do in Athens, you would be thrown into prison for being a sorcerer.
You are cunning, Meno, and you almost caught me.
What are you talking about?
I know why you made that comparison about me.
Why do you think I did that?
So that I might make a simile about you in return. I know that handsome people like you enjoy being flattered, so you're expecting me to compare you to something beautiful. But I'm not going to return the compliment. As for my being a torpedo fish, I accept the comparison, but only if a torpedo is itself numb and not just the cause of numbness in others. I puzzle other people not because I am clear, but only because I myself am puzzled. I do not know what goodness is, and now you seem to be in the same condition, even though you may have known before you touched me. However, I'd like to join with you in the search.
Socrates, how can you search for something when you don't know what you're looking for? What will you take to be the subject of your inquiry? And even if you did find it, how will you know that this is what you didn't know?
I understand the point you are making, Meno, but now you are getting me into an argument that tries to catch me in a dilemma. I cannot search either for what I know or what I don't know. If I know, it makes no sense to inquire. If I don't know, then the search is futile, because I would not know it if I found it.
Well, Socrates, isn't it a good argument?
I don't think so.
Can you explain what's wrong with it?
I can. I have heard the explanation from wise men and women who speak of divine matters.
What did they say?
They spoke a beautiful truth.
What is it? Who were they?
Some were priests and priestesses who had studied the role of their profession, and others were inspired, such as the poet Pindar. Here's what they say. See if you think it's true. They claim that the human soul is immortal. Even though it comes to the end of life, which is called dying, at another time it is reborn. It is never destroyed. For that reason, people should live holy lives. For in the 9th year, Persephone sends the souls of those from whom she has received the penalty of ancient crime back again into the light of this world. And these are they who become noble kings and mighty men and great in wisdom, and are called heroes in later ages. Because the soul is immortal and has been reborn many times, it has seen all things, both in this world and in the world below, so it knows them all. Therefore, it is no wonder that the soul can remember what it knew about goodness and everything else, because all nature is connected, and the soul has learned all things. Once it has learned one thing, it is not difficult for it to remember, or as we say, learn whatever else is worth knowing. But that takes courage and persistence. All inquiry and all learning are recollection, so we should pay no attention to sophistic arguments about the impossibility of inquiry. Such words are sweet only to loafers, and they will make us lazy, but the other words will make us active and energetic. On that basis, Meno, I will happily inquire with you into the nature of goodness.
Socrates, I don't fully understand what you mean by saying that what we call learning is really a process of recollection. Can you instruct me?
Meno, that's why I said you are cunning. Now you ask whether I can teach you, and I just said that there is no teaching but only recollecting. You are trying to trap me in a contradiction.
That's not true, Socrates. I was not trying to trap you. I only asked the question from habit. But I would like to see you prove what you say is true.
That's not an easy task, but I will do everything in my power to please you. You have several servants with you. If you call one of them, I will demonstrate what I mean.
Of course. You, come over here.
I assume he is Greek and speaks Greek.
Yes, he was born and brought up in my house.
Meno, please pay attention to the questions I ask him so you can decide whether he learns from me or only remembers.
I'm all ears.
My boy, do you know the figure called a square?
I do.
And do you know that a square has 4 equal sides?
Certainly.
And if we draw lines through the middle of the sides, are they also equal?
Yes.
Can a square be of any size, either larger or smaller?
Yes.
If one side of a square is 2 feet long, and the other side is 2 feet long, how many feet will there be in the whole? Look at it this way. If the figure were 2 feet on one side and 1 foot on the other, the whole would contain 2 feet taken once.
I understand.
But if the second side is 2 feet long, the whole figure is twice 2 feet.
That's right.
Then the square as a whole is twice 2 feet.
Yes.
Then how many feet are there in twice 2 feet?
4, Socrates.
Could there be another square that is twice as large as this one, having the sides equal as this one does?
Yes.
And how many feet would it contain?
8 feet.
Now, Try to tell me the length of the side that forms that double square. If this one is 2 feet, what will that one be?
It would be double, Socrates.
Meno, do you see that I'm not teaching him anything? I'm asking questions, and at this point, he believes he knows how long a line is necessary to produce a figure of 8 square feet. Isn't that right?
That's right.
Does he really know?
Certainly not.
He is only guessing, believing that because the square is double, the line must be double.
True.
Now watch how he recalls the steps in order. Tell me, do you claim that a double area comes from a double line? And remember that I'm not speaking of an oblong, but of a square. I'm thinking of a square, twice the size of the first. It contains 8 square feet. I want to know whether you still say that a double square comes from doubling the length of the side.
I do.
But to double the side, I must add 1 of the same length, making a side of 4 feet.
Yes.
Then if I have 4 sides of that kind, each 4 feet long, that will make a square of 8 feet?
That's right.
Let's think of such a figure, one that you say contains 8 square feet.
Okay.
When the sides are 2 feet long, the figure contains 4 square feet. But when the sides are 4 feet long, we could have a figure with 4 divisions, each containing 4 square feet.
True.
But that would be 4 times 4, wouldn't it?
It would.
So it would not be double the size.
No.
How much would it be?
4 times as much.
So, a double line forms an area that is 4 times as much, not twice as much.
Yes.
4 times 4 makes 16.
That's right.
When we doubled the 2-foot side, we created a figure containing 16 square feet. How long is the side of a square that produces a figure of 8 square feet? Do you understand the question?
I do.
A square with 2-foot-long sides produces 4 square feet.
Yes.
A figure with 8 square feet would be twice the size of the one with 4 square feet, but half the size of the one with 16 square feet.
Correct.
So, the figure we are seeking would be made from a side longer than the first one, but shorter than the second one.
I think so.
Good. Just tell me what you think. The first line was 2 feet long, and the second one was 4 feet long. Is that right?
That's right, Socrates.
Therefore, the line that forms a figure with 8 square feet must be longer than 2 feet and shorter than 4 feet.
It must.
Can you tell me how long it would be?
3 feet.
Let's see. Add half to the 2-foot side. That will produce a side 3 feet long.
Yes.
But if there are 3 feet on one side and 3 feet on the other, the whole space will be 3 times 3 feet.
That's clear.
But what is 3 times 3?
9.
How much is 2 times 4?
8.
Then a 3-foot side does not produce a figure with 8 square feet.
I guess not.
Then what is the answer?
Socrates, I just don't know.
Meno, can you see the progress he has made in his power of recollection? At first, he didn't know, and he still doesn't know, the length of the side of a figure that contains 8 square feet. But then he thought he knew and answered confidently as if he did know. He experienced no difficulty. But now he is puzzled. He doesn't know, and he doesn't pretend to know.
That's true, Socrates.
Isn't he better off now, knowing his ignorance?
I think he is.
Have we done him any harm by causing him to doubt and by numbing him like a torpedo fish?
I don't think so.
On the contrary, We have assisted him in finding the truth. In the beginning, he would have been ready to tell the whole world that doubling the side of a square would double the area.
No doubt.
Do you think he would ever have asked or learned that what he thought he knew he did not know, unless he had been puzzled by not knowing and thus developed the desire to know?
I don't think he would.
Then the sting of the torpedo fish was good for him.
I'm sure it was.
Watch what happens next. I will only ask questions, not feed him answers. He will join me in the search. You keep watch to be sure that I don't tell him or explain anything to him, rather than asking his opinion. Let's start again. Can you imagine a square with an area of 4 feet? Each side is 2 feet long.
Yes.
Now, imagine another of the same size next to it.
Okay.
Add a third one on top of that one.
Yes.
Next, let's fill up the vacant corner with a 4th square.
Okay.
Now, we have 4 small squares forming one big square.
That's right.
How many times larger than the first one is the big one?
4 times.
But we are looking for a square only twice as large.
Yes.
Can you picture a square inside the big one with its corners located in the middle of each of the sides of the big square?
I can. It looks like a diamond inside of the big square.
Are all of the 4 sides of the diamond equal?
They are.
Imagine 4 triangles inside it, created by the diamond and the sides of the original squares.
Okay.
What is the area of each triangle?
I don't know.
The big square is composed of 4 smaller squares with sides 2 feet long. Each side of the diamond has cut the original squares in half. How many square feet were in the original squares with 2-foot sides?
4 square feet.
If the triangle cuts each square in half, how many square feet are in each triangle?
2 square feet.
How many triangles are inside the diamond?
4.
What is the area of the diamond?
4 times 2. 8 square feet.
Good. Now, from what line do you get the figure with 8 square feet?
From the line that runs from the middle of the sides of the big square.
Math teachers call that line the diagonal. If we use that name, would you answer my original question by saying that to double the area of the square with 2-foot sides, we must take the square of the diagonal?
Yes, I would.
What do you say, Meno? Didn't he give those answers only after thinking them through himself?
That's right.
But at first he didn't know the answer.
True.
And yet he had these opinions inside himself.
He did.
Then, even if he doesn't know, he may still have right opinions about what he doesn't know.
I agree.
At the moment, these opinions are just coming to him as in a dream. But if he were frequently asked the same questions in different ways, he would eventually know the answers as well as anyone.
I suppose you're right.
Without anyone instructing him, he grasps the knowledge for himself.
Yes.
Can we call his recovery of knowledge recollection?
I think we can.
The knowledge he has now must either have been acquired or he always possessed it.
Yes.
But if he always possessed it, he would always have known. If he acquired it, he could not have done so in this life unless someone taught him geometry. He could do the same with the rest of geometry and with every other branch of knowledge. Has anyone ever taught him these subjects? You must know, since he was born and brought up in your house.
Socrates, I'm sure nobody ever taught him.
Yet he does have this knowledge.
That's clear.
But if he didn't acquire this knowledge in this life, then he must have learned it at some other time.
Evidently.
That must have been when he was not in human form.
Yes.
If he has always had true opinions that only need to be awakened into knowledge by putting questions to him, both when he was and was not in human form, then his soul must always have possessed this knowledge, regardless of whether he was in human form or not.
That's obvious.
If the truth about reality always existed in the soul, then the soul is immortal. Therefore, we should take heart and try to recollect what we do not know, or what we do not remember.
Socrates, for some reason, I like what you're saying.
Meno, I also like what I'm saying. I'm not so sure about everything I've said, but I will fight with all my might in both words and actions for this claim. We will be better and braver and more useful if we think that we ought to search for what we don't know than if we believe there is no knowledge and no point in searching for it.
Socrates, I also like those words.
Since we agree that people should inquire about what they don't know, shall we search together for the meaning of goodness?
I'm ready to join you, Socrates. But I would rather go back to my original question. Do we obtain goodness by instruction, by nature, or in some other way?
If I were able to control both you and myself, I would avoid asking whether or not we obtain goodness by being taught until we first determine what goodness is. But you never think of controlling yourself, but only controlling those of us who are your helpless servants. I suppose this is your idea of freedom, and I must yield to you because I have no power to resist. So now I have to search for the qualities of something when I don't even know its nature. But will you at least relax your hold over me a little and let me use the hypothetical method while I pursue the question of whether goodness is gained through teaching or some other way? By the hypothetical method, I mean the kind of approach mathematicians use when they are asked whether a certain triangle can be inscribed in a certain circle. The mathematician would probably say, "Well, I can't tell you, but I will offer a hypothesis that may help us find the answer. For example, if you construct a triangle on a line inside a circle and the area is equal to that of another triangle constructed in the same line, then one conclusion follows. But if the areas are unequal, then another conclusion follows. In this way, I will present a hypothesis before I tell you whether this triangle is able to be inscribed in the circle." Since you and I don't know the nature and qualities of goodness, we must offer a hypothesis before deciding whether or not goodness can be taught. Then, if goodness is connected with a certain activity of the soul, can it be taught or not? Let's take as our first hypothesis that goodness is related to knowing. In that case, could it be taught or remembered, as we were just saying? And let's not quibble about the expression, but simply ask whether goodness can be taught. Isn't it clear that only what can be known could be taught?
Yes, Socrates, that seems clear.
Then, if goodness is some kind of knowledge, it can be taught?
Certainly.
So, we have made quick work of that question. If goodness is of that kind, then it can be taught. But if it is not, then it cannot be taught.
Correct.
The next question is whether goodness is a kind of knowledge or not.
Yes, that does seem to be the next question.
Don't we usually say that goodness is a form of the good itself? Can we hold that hypothesis?
Yes.
If any form of good is separate from knowledge, goodness may be that quality. But if knowledge embraces every good, then we are right in thinking that knowledge is the same as good in all of its forms.
True.
Can we say that goodness makes us good?
Yes.
And if it is good, then it is beneficial because all good things are beneficial.
Yes.
So goodness is beneficial?
That follows from what we said before.
Then let's consider the various things that are beneficial. Health, strength, beauty, and wealth all seem to be beneficial.
True.
But wouldn't you say that these things are also able to harm us?
I can think of cases in which they could be harmful.
What is the guiding principle that makes them beneficial or harmful? Should we say that they are beneficial when they are used correctly and harmful when they are not used correctly?
That sounds right.
What about the goods of the soul, such as self-control, justice, courage, quickness of mind, memory, and excellent character?
We should consider those qualities.
When those qualities are separated from knowledge, they become harmful. For example, courage without thought becomes audacity. When a person lacks good sense, courage becomes harmful. But when it is thoughtful, it is beneficial.
That's true.
And we can say the same about self-control and quickness of mind. Whatever we learn or do thoughtfully is beneficial, but what we do thoughtlessly is harmful.
That's also true.
Then can we say, in general, that when wisdom guides the soul, happiness results, but that folly leads to unhappiness?
Yes, Socrates, I think we can rightly say that.
This means that if goodness is a beneficial quality of the soul, it must be wisdom. The reason is that the various qualities of the soul are either beneficial or harmful by the addition or lack of wisdom. So, if goodness is beneficial, it must be a kind of practical wisdom.
That's what I think, Socrates.
And the other goods we mentioned, such as wealth, are sometimes beneficial and sometimes harmful, depending on whether or not wisdom guides the soul and uses them rightly.
Exactly.
A wise soul guides them rightly, and a foolish soul uses them wrongly.
Yes.
Isn't it universally true that human beings and everything else depend on the soul? And the soul, if it is to be good, depends on wisdom? According to this line of reasoning, wisdom is beneficial, and therefore goodness is beneficial.
I fully agree.
Meno, this leads us to the conclusion that goodness is wisdom, at least in part.
I think that what you're saying is true, Socrates.
But if it is true, then people are not good by nature.
I guess not.
If they were good by nature, we would surely also have experts who could recognize the best among us and identify our future leaders. Once they had identified them, they would have put them in the Acropolis out of harm's way, stamping them as more valuable than gold so that nobody would tamper with them. When they grew up, they would have been beneficial to the Republic.
Yes, Socrates, that's how they would have done it.
But if people are not good by nature, are they made good by teaching?
There is no other alternative, Socrates. If we assume that goodness is knowledge, we must conclude that goodness must be taught.
That's right, but what if our assumption is wrong?
Well, it seemed right a moment ago.
Yes, Meno, but if a principle is sound, it should stand up not only now and then, but always and forever.
Why are you so reluctant to believe that goodness is knowledge?
I'll try to explain. I do not give up the claim that if goodness is knowledge, then it can be taught. But I do have a reason for doubting whether goodness is knowledge. Meno, tell me whether anything that is taught, not just goodness, must have teachers and students.
Of course, there must be teachers and students.
And on the contrary, if there are no teachers and students of a subject, must we not assume that it cannot be taught?
That's true. But don't you think there are teachers of goodness?
Meno, I have spent my life asking that question, and I've taken great pains to find such teachers, but I have never succeeded. Many people have helped me in my search, and they were the ones I thought most likely to know. But look, over there. Perhaps we're in luck. Anytus is coming to sit with us just when we need him. He's the person we should ask.